Hello, my name is David Edwards. Thank you for joining us for the second day of discussing paintings and art that depict the scenes of Jesus' life during Holy Week. Today's topic is Jesus healing in the temple. And I'd like to read a passage from the book of John that talks about that. This is John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by five covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred by the angel. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The first painting that we're looking at today is called Christ Healing the Blind Man by the French artist Eustace Le Sueur, and it dates to about 1645. Eustace was a French artist and one of the founders of the French Academy of Painting. He is known primarily for his painting of religious subjects. In this painting, the action of the figures, the vibrant colors and flowing garments, and the classical architecture and the landscape in the background are all hallmarks of the Baroque style of painting popular in France in the 17th century. Jesus wears a pinkish white undergarment that immediately draws your eye to his arm and healing touch as he heals the blind man kneeling before him with his staff, his arms reaching out in counterpoise to Jesus. Presumably, the disciples of different ages are craning their necks to get a better look, while an excited boy runs to the scene from off to the left of the painting. This is all in contrast to the serene and beautiful background, this dramatic and exciting scene in the foreground. Look at the positions of the hands of the subjects and different expressions of amazement at what they see. The next painting is called Christ Healing the Sick in the Temple by Benjamin West, and it dates to 1815. In 1800, Benjamin West, a native of Pennsylvania, who was one of America's first well-known painters and who had moved to England, received a letter in London from the president of the Board of Managers of Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia. The board requested that he paint something for them to put on display as a fundraiser for the hospital. Christ Healing the Sick was completed and exhibited in England in 1811. The painting was so well received that British aristocrats and artists urged West to sell it to them, and it became the first work to be hung in a proposed National Gallery of Art in London. Another version was then painted by West and sent to America, where it was well received and raised much money for the Pennsylvania Hospital. West said of the painting, quote, "The subject of the painting is the Redeemer of mankind, extending his aid to the afflicted of all ranks and conditions," unquote. In the painting, Jesus is off-center to draw your attention to the many sick people surrounding him. There's a leper, a lame man, a woman in distress, and a mentally ill boy in the background who's being held and restrained. All types of humanity reaching out to Jesus, expecting to be healed. Look at the background at the far left. The religious leaders are all huddled together in their white head garments just below the menorah, and they are looking at Jesus healing in dismay and are plotting against Jesus. You can just see it in their faces. The next painting is entitled "The Sick Were Presented to Him" by James Tissot, and it dates to about 1890. In yesterday's series of paintings on Palm Sunday, one was by James Tissot, a French 19th century painter who painted 365 watercolors of biblical illustrations, many of them in a series on the life of Christ. I also mentioned that Tissot traveled to the Holy Land to study the architecture and landscapes that serve as backdrops to the events in his painting. This one shows Jesus in flowing white robes healing a crippled man on a staircase lined with others in the foreground in despair, perhaps not knowing until now that the healing touch of Jesus could change their lives. The half arch over Jesus' head and the stone walls frame the picture in a rustic effect. The different colors and stripes of the garments. Clothing is a particular interest of Tissot. These garments and colors accent the painting, which hangs in the Brooklyn Museum of Art. The next painting is called "Christ Healing the Sick at Bethesda" by Carl Bloch, dating to 1883. This event of Jesus healing the sick man at the pool of Bethesda is only found in the book of John, the part that I read earlier. In this realistic painting, full of stark light, as in the robes of Jesus, and the contrasting shadows in the sick man's tent-like covering, and the recesses of the structure beyond the pool, we see Jesus conversing with the sick man while others await their chances of being healed by the waters of the miraculous pool. When an angel supposedly rustles the water, they all jump in. They all rush in to be the first to be healed. Each of the other figures in the picture, the disciples behind Jesus, the woman carrying the water jug, the two men on the pavement conversing, and two others staring at the pool, are all illuminated while the sick man that Jesus healed is in rags and in the shadows. All the better to draw your eye to Jesus' outstretched arm, ready to heal the man out of compassion for his helplessness. Carl Bloch, the painter, was Danish and famous for his 23 paintings of the life of Christ commissioned by the King of Denmark for his palace chapel. The last painting in this series for Tuesday is entitled "Christ Heals the Multitude" by Jeffrey Hein, and it dates to 2012. This modern painting shows a compassionate Jesus in a simple white robe, surrounded by people young and old, who either look at him adoringly or are in humble contemplation as Jesus touches them. The thankfulness shown by the man with his hands joined in praise in the foreground, and the piercing look of the boy to the right, looking straight at us, the viewer, all add to the humanity expressed in this painting. Jeffrey Hein is an American painter, and this painting hangs in a church in Honduras. Thank you for joining us for this series of paintings. Tomorrow, we will be looking at paintings that deal with Jesus cleansing the temple. I hope you can join us.